Hello, 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 hello. Let me get my little, hang on, let me get my little setup right. There we go. Okay, chat on. Can you please type yes if you can hear me? That would be fabulous. There you all are. Yes, 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 yes. Awesome. Thank you everyone for joining me today. I'm sure we've all had a very interesting couple of weeks with our various stages of lockdown. I am very fortunate in that I live on an isolated island in the country, and the only shops that are declared that are open are the ones I use, which is the garden shop, the food shop, and the gas station. So I have been breaking the rules intentionally. We have a closed down park near us, and I do feel responsible for standing up against unreasonable laws. So I am walking in that closed down park every day and willing to accept the consequences of that. As far as I'm concerned, it's a ridiculous thing to shut down remote parks where there are no people, and it's very easy to maintain distance. So that's my little bit of rebellion for, well, there's a lot of other rebellions going on, but that's one that I can share with you. Let me think, are there any announcements? No, because nothing's happening. We're just circling the airport as far as any retreats go. Obviously, Crete has been postponed. Fortunately, I did not book any retreats in the summer months. We are keeping our fingers crossed for Salt Spring, but of course we won't know for a while yet if flights are resumed or anything like that. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed that we can hopefully do Salt Spring. If not, we will move into next year, and those of you that have signed up, we will do our very, very best to come where we said we would come, and hopefully if it's not this year, then it will be 2021. So let's see what Jesus has to say to us today. You are blessed beings indeed. I am that one that you know as Jesus. And of course, you are all getting to see parts of your minds that you have not ever seen before. This is one of the great benefits of the experience you are having. You are getting to feel perhaps frustrations that you've never felt before. You are getting to feel appreciation for things that you perhaps were skipping over or feeling a little resentment towards. Your priorities are changing, and as much as these are difficult times financially for people, we understand that there is a greater growth and expansion happening, and we want you to appreciate that. There is a difficult line to walk here in this situation. And it's important for you to understand what that line is. Your work as a spiritual seeker, as a spiritual student, is to always turn inward and ask what you are being shown about yourself and how you can improve your relationship with love and with yourself through whatever experience you are having. So it's very, very easy during these times to point the finger and say, that's the problem, that's the issue. Because that's what projection does. When you're under stress, when you're in fight or flight or freeze mode, projection rules. Because you are in what we would say an unevolved state of ego dominance. The mind is being dominated by the ego. It's a survival mechanism. When you look at the basic teachings that we have brought forth, the ego's job is to keep the body alive, because the ego only lives when you have a body. It does not live when you do not have a body. When you move from the physical incarnation, you will have complete different awarenesses and understandings of the experiences you had when you were dominated by the ego's survival mechanisms. And when you were dominated by the five senses, that the ego uses to prove that you're separate, to prove that you're alone, to prove that you're a body. So this is why body-focused conversations, body-focused things like pandemics trigger fight or flight or freeze mode. So some of you are bewildered why many people are not questioning more deeply the protocols that are being implemented in your world. It is because they cannot fight the government. They are fight or flight or freeze. They cannot fight the government. They cannot take off and go anywhere. The only option in the primitive triggered brain is to freeze. So we want you to take this under advisement as you are looking around bewildered. Many of you are bewildered thinking, my goodness, how could so many people be, we will use the word coerced because most people are not doing this voluntarily. How could so many people be coerced into giving up their income, giving up their job, perhaps losing their job permanently, staying in a situation that is unpleasant, staying in a situation that is difficult? There are many things that have led to this situation. So as spiritual students and spiritual seekers, what we want you to ask is, how has my behavior contributed to what I am experiencing now? And we want to go through a few things here so that you can look and see, are there adjustments that I can make as we exit this hard lockdown or this intense period of isolation? Are there things that I can address in my own life that are, should this happen again, going to make my experience better? So, of course, one of the first things that many people are seeing is that their salaried or paycheck life is a precarious one. The second you are not allowed to go to work, most people, they do not get paid. And that is a very, very precarious situation to be in. So many of you will say, well, that's just what I have to do. What we want you to understand is that your society is going through an evolution. It's going through an evolution that is inexorable, that is not going to stop, that is going to continue on. And it doesn't matter whether you say, I have no choice, I have to do this or not. The evolution of your planet is going to continue. And the evolution of your planet is, we will say, what you would call a survival mechanism in that sense. The body of Gaia, being impacted tremendously by human activity, is working through a process herself of recalibration. She is seeking to encourage all of those species on her back, so to speak. And it does feel like that to her. You all do feel a little bit like that to her. It's like an itch that she can't get to. Eventually, that will drive anyone crazy, and you will find a way of scratching it. So getting back to that idea of the employment, what we would encourage all of you to do during this time is to reassess the way you make your money. Now, for many of you, this is an overwhelming idea because you have had 20 or 30 years in a career. You have, or perhaps you have retirement looming on the horizon, 6 or 7 years away, and you think, oh, well, I don't really want to give up this job because I've got that big old paycheck coming in my retirement, and that means I get 60% of my salary and I don't have to do anything for it. But what we want you to understand is that that is assuming that the structures of government, the structures of support, the structures of insurance, the structures of retirement funds are all in place when you retire. We are going to get you to ask yourself the question, does it look like the government is stable? Does it look like the financial system is stable, or does it look like it's destabilizing? We are not here to frighten you. We are here to encourage you to develop over the next years, months and years, innovation, independence, interdependence. So working with your community to find out who is producing what is lacking in your community, what could be a valuable service that your community should supply lines continue to be interrupted, should government payrolls not be there, what service would your community benefit from? What's going to happen, especially for those of you that are deeply immersed in your Course in Miracles practice, is that you are now feeling the call to step up your game into something that is not a new idea for you, but that is in fact something that's been on your mind for quite some time. So remember that we are here to remind you that you have conditioned programs running in your mind, and you have another stream of information that's coming from your guides and teachers. So if you have for the last 2 or 3 years every spring said, oh, I should put a garden in, that would be a good idea, but you look at the labor involved and you look at this few $100s that it's going to cost to get soil, and then you think, oh, I can't be bothered, there's food in the store. Many of you are now thinking, gosh darn it, if I had put my garden in 3 years ago, I would have some source of fresh fruits and vegetables now that perhaps would be very welcome should food supply lines start to impact us. Remember, we have said at some point the stores will be closed, and we have been trying to get you to reassess your dependence on this precarious house of cards. That is your government financial system, your food distribution system, your gasoline distribution system. Your education system has also been pointed out as a somewhat unloving system that is designed to do what? To train children away from their own guidance into a more supplicant kind of energy where they will do as they're told so that they can go to work. Well, what we are excited about on your behalf is that many of you in your quarantine status now are beginning to see just how precarious everything that you have counted on to keep you happy and alive is, and how domineering the system can be, the government system, state systems, provincial systems can be, should they choose. So we are asking all of you to look at how you live and look at your plans for the next 5 to 10 years. Now, this is not something that you're going to be able to change in a week or a day, but we will tell you, there are many people who are not at work right now who are dreading going back to work. They want to go back to work because their livelihood and their income depends on it. But their actual form of work, they are dreading. And if you are one of those people that you are relishing in having more freedom, even if it is not body freedom, it is the freedom to get up a little bit later in the morning, the freedom to spend time doing things that you love, perhaps painting or drawing or writing or gardening. If you are one of those people, we really want you to take this experience as the revealing of something that you needed to see. That you needed to see, I actually hate my job and I don't want to do it anymore. We would advise you over the coming months and years to begin reassessing how you can create income for yourself. Now, our dear one lives on a rural farm-focused island. A lot of people are what you would call anti-establishment here. That's one of the reasons that we asked her to live on this island. She did not want to live on this island. When she started channeling, we insisted that she come back because we knew what the future held. We knew the trajectory that your society was on and the probability that it would come to a fork in the road such as you have encountered here, where the we will say technocrats and bureaucrats are seeking to shift and change the organizational structure of your planet to such a degree that it will become oppressive. Now, there is a structure at play in your society which has been assisting in this process and has been going on for quite some time, and that is the urbanization process. So the more urbanized you are, the more dependent you are on government systems, artificial distribution systems, these kinds of things. Now, how has this urbanization happened? Well, it has happened because the land ownership strategy that was developed a very long time ago has systematically made it more and more and more difficult for you to own a piece of land on which you could grow your own food. So you can see back over in your histories that there were big shifts in the Victorian era, and there were increasing laws and restrictions that require home building to be a very, very expensive and complicated process. So in the olden days, what people would do is they would have a family piece of property, and the parents who were getting too old to farm would have their various and sundry children spread around the property in their cabins and their homes, some in the main house with them. And as the elder generation became incapable of doing as much work, the strong young teenagers were able to step in and assist. And there was a gentle transition from self-sufficiency to interdependence to total dependence as those parents became aged and unable to work the land. So what happened in the subdivision of these properties is then that you were not allowed to bequeath parts of your land to your children. And they did this by preventing you from building a second home on the property. And this has led to families fracturing, the young people leaving and going to the city. This was one of the intentions behind that somewhat arbitrary law. After all, if you have a 20-acre piece of property, what is wrong with building another house on it? There is nothing logically wrong. You must begin to use your intelligence to ask some questions like this. Why would a law like that prevent you from subdividing off 5 acres for one of your children? It is illogical. So these are some of the fundamental strategies that have been used to urbanize, because when you look at most people's dreams, they dream of having an acreage, a cottage in the country with acreage where they can grow flowers and grow food. This is a dream for most humans. Why? Because it's the natural way to live. You are designed to be engaged with nature. You are designed to eat fresh and often raw food. You are designed to have cooperative relationships with animals around you. You are designed to have cooperative relationships with your family and neighbors. That is the healthiest pattern for humans. It gives you independence, it gives you interdependence, and when you're suffering or ill, it gives you the ability to rely on others with whom you have developed lifelong relationships and who can come and give you a hand. So that is what has been transpiring in your society for quite some time. Now, every society comes to a fork in the road where they get to see, is what we are doing working? Is what we are doing making people happy, keeping people healthy? This is not the first time a civilization has come to a fork in the road. And many civilizations have over time gone by the wayside because they were out of balance. And what we want to impress upon you now is that this quarantine, this lockdown, whatever form of that experience you are having, is your great opportunity to ask yourself, which fork of the road are you going to take as an individual? Which fork in the road are you going to take as an individual? Because guess what? Your society is made up of individuals. And the more of you that begin to see the unhealthiness of where you have arrived at, the quicker your civilization is going to make that shift in direction. We will tell you that for many, deeply immersed in city life, deeply dependent on the system, it's going to be a very, very difficult challenge and change to make. And they may not make it. They may not make that change, and they may have to live with modern life in what you would consider a dystopian future in the urban environment. We are not saying this to scare you. We are saying this so that you will look at what you are doing with your time, with your investments, with how you live, where you live, with whom you live, and begin to reassess, is this going to work if things get worse? Is this going to work if travel is forbidden permanently? Is this going to work if I become aged and need help without government support? Because, as we have said many times, the structures that you see as permanent are not permanent. The structures that you see as your salvation are not your salvation. On the contrary, at times they are your prison guards. So we would like you all to dig deep in this time. Feel what you are feeling. Some of you will be politically motivated. Some of you will be motivated to seek financial independence from an employer. Some of you will be farm oriented and decide that you are going to sell your home and your investment property, and you are going to buy a property that will support you and your families. You are each going to go through your own journey. Some parents are realizing that their children are happier, that they would like to consider homeschooling because it's not been that hard getting them to do homework for an hour or two each day. And they are relieved, the whole family is relieved, that they do not have to rush everybody out of the door at 7:45 every morning, sleepy and tired, wishing that they could stay in bed. So this is a revolutionary time, and it is a catalyst for each of you to understand that this is about your experience of your consciousness and how you would like to live the next 20, 25 years of your life.